Imagine you are standing on a pier in the middle of a moonless night. The water is black, the air is cold, and you are staring at a horizon you cannot see. Suddenly, a light flashes beneath the waves. Not from above, not from a lighthouse, but from the depths. That is how the scientific community felt on July 14th, 2025. While most of the world was sleeping or scrolling through headlines, the Pan-STARRS survey in Hawaii captured a smudge of light that defied the laws of celestial mechanics. It was moving too fast to be a comet, yet it was too quiet to be a machine. We named it 3I Atlas, the third known messenger from the interstellar void. But as you lie there tonight, tucked under your blankets, you should know that 3I Atlas has stopped acting like a visitor and started acting like a landlord. The data is precise and unapologetic. On August 3rd, 2025, researchers at the European Space Agency noted that the object was rotating with a perfect, unchanging period of 360 seconds, not 361, not 359. It is a mathematical integer in a universe that usually prefers chaotic decimals. Then, in November 2025, Dr. Avi Loeb from Harvard pointed out something that should have made every evening news broadcast. As 3I Atlas approached the inner solar system, it didn't outgas like a normal comet. It didn't sprout a tail of ice and dust. Instead, it accelerated. It used the sun's radiation pressure as if it were unfurling a sail made of nothing, a light sail, a technology we have only dreamt of, currently drifting past our front door at 42 kilometers per second. Now, you could argue that nature is full of coincidences. You might think it is just a strangely shaped rock reflecting light in a lucky way. But here is why you are wrong. 3I Atlas is currently maintaining a surface temperature of 72 degrees Fahrenheit. It is not freezing in the shadow. It is not burning in the sun. It is climate controlled. This is not natural physics. This is activation. What if this object is not looking for a planet to crash into, but a consciousness to respond to? Imagine a doorbell that has been ringing for 12,000 years, and we are the first generation to have a high enough ceiling to hear it. There is a terrifying elegance to this timing. If we look back at the Sumerian kings list or the pre-dynastic records of Egypt, there is a recurring mention of the guest star that remains for one season to judge the harvest. The theologians are sweating because the book of Ezekiel describes a chariot of fire with eyes all around the rim. In December 2025, a team of digital archaeologists at the University of Chicago found that the radar profile of 3I Atlas perfectly matches the proportions of the described wheels within wheels. It seems the Bible wasn't a book of parables. It was an observation log. As you listen to the sound of your own breathing, consider your place in this timeline. You are a biological entity living on a thin crust of rock, watching a 3 billion-year-old intelligence perform a slow flyby of your home. It makes our daily anxieties feel a bit, well, let us just say, those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work right now. We are so busy worrying about our bills and our schedules that we miss the fact that the sky is no longer empty. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. The most unsettling part isn't what we can see, but what we can't. 3I Atlas is currently positioned at a point where it can see both the dark side of the Moon and the dawn side of Earth simultaneously. It is the perfect vantage point for a sentry, and as of January 5th, 2026, it has stopped its outbound trajectory entirely. It is just waiting. We may already be part of the experiment. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let us go further. The evidence is deepening, and with it, the sense that our history books have a few missing chapters. In late October 2025, a clandestine report from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory suggested that 3I Atlas is not a solid object at all. It is porous. It has a density less than that of water, yet it is stronger than any carbon fiber we can manufacture. It is a hollowed-out mountain of metallic glass. Think about that as you settle deeper into your pillow. A mountain that travels between suns, carrying the silence of 1,000 dead civilizations. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. On December 12th, 2025, the James Webb Space Telescope attempted to take a deep field image of the object. The sensor didn't return a picture of a rock, it returned a reflection of the telescope itself. 3I Atlas is a mirror. It is coated in a substance that reflects 99% of all incoming electromagnetic radiation. This is why we didn't see it until it was already upon us. It was hiding in plain sight, mimicking the blackness of the background stars. It is the cosmic equivalent of someone standing in your hallway, wrapped in a cloak of invisibility, and the only reason you know they are there is because you can hear them breathing. Theologians at the Vatican have been holding closed-door sessions since November. They are looking at the Greek term pharmakos, the one who is cast out to bring healing or destruction. They are cross-referencing the orbital path of 3I Atlas with the star charts found in the tomb of Senenmut. It turns out this object follows a path that mimics the precession of the equinoxes every 12,900 years. It is a pendulum, and the pendulum just reached its lowest point. You might think we would be screaming from the rooftops about this, but the authorities are being remarkably quiet. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University recently leaked a memo stating that the gravitational wake of the object is causing micro-fluctuations in the Earth's core. It is as if the object is reaching out with invisible fingers and feeling the pulse of our planet. It is checking to see if we are still warm. It is checking to see if there is anyone home. It is a strange feeling, isn't it? To realize that your life is being measured by something that doesn't use meters or seconds. For those of you listening in the early hours of the morning, perhaps around 3 in the morning, you might feel a slight heaviness in the air. That isn't just sleepiness. That is the feeling of being observed. 3I Atlas is currently 3 million kilometers away, but in cosmic terms, that is the same as someone standing 6 inches from your face. What if the Bible's mentions of the great cloud weren't metaphors for God, but literal descriptions of this object's arrival? In the book of Revelation, there is a star called wormwood that turns the waters bitter. In January 2026, oceanographers noticed a change in the salinity of the North Atlantic that matches the gravitational pull of a passing mass the size of Atlas. We are watching a prophecy translate itself into physics in real time. It is almost funny. in a dark sort of way. We spent billions of dollars looking for radio signals from distant galaxies, hoping for a hello. Meanwhile, the visitor just parked in the driveway and is waiting for us to open the door. It is a very polite sort of invasion. No lasers, no grand speeches, just a mirror in the sky, reflecting our own fear back at us. As you begin to let go of the day's thoughts, I want you to imagine the scale of this. 3I Atlas has traveled through the void for eons. It has seen the birth of stars and the death of worlds. And yet, it chose this specific window of time to decelerate. It chose us. Or perhaps, it simply remembered where it left us. But here is where it gets dark. Let me back up. There is a pattern in the math that no one is talking about yet. On October 29th, 2025, a senior analyst at the European Space Agency noticed a discrepancy in the object's infrared signature. While the surface of 3I Atlas remains a stable 22 degrees Celsius, the internal core appears to be cooling at a rate that matches the Fibonacci sequence. Every 34 minutes, the temperature drops by exactly 0.00001 degrees. It is a biological countdown, a metabolic rhythm that feels less like a machine and more like a heart that is slowly being put to sleep, or perhaps one that is being woken up. And let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. If you calculate the mass of the object based on its gravitational influence on the moons of Mars, it weighs exactly 1 billion kilograms, less than its size suggests it should. It is not just hollow, it is buoyant. It is a bubble of vacuum wrapped in a skin of ancient metal, floating through the sea of space. Now, you could argue that this is just exotic matter. You might think we simply do not understand the geology of interstellar bodies. But here is why you are wrong. On November 12th, 2025, the James Webb Space Telescope detected a faint light coming from the dark side of 3I Atlas. It wasn't a reflection, it was a projection. For 3 seconds, the object cast a shadow onto the dust clouds of the Pleiades. That shadow was the exact shape of the Earth's continents as they appeared 12,000 years ago. It is as if 3I Atlas is carrying a photograph of our home from the last time it visited. It is checking its notes. It is making sure the furniture hasn't moved too much since the Younger Dryas. It is a very strange feeling, isn't it? To realize that a rock in the sky has a better memory of your planet than you do. Theologians are currently locked in debate over the Book of Job, specifically the passages describing Leviathan. They are starting to wonder if the scales of the beast were actually hexagonal tiles of a heat shield. When you reread the ancient texts with the knowledge of 2026, the metaphors start to dissolve into technical specifications. The breath of fire becomes the exhaust of a nuclear thermal rocket. The eyes, like the eyelids of the morning, become the optical sensors of an autonomous probe. Dr. Avi Loeb recently suggested that we are looking at a technosignature so advanced it has become indistinguishable from nature. It is a piece of cosmic driftwood that just happens to be programmed to watch us sleep. It is a bit of a dry joke, really. We spent billions of dollars looking for life, and it turns out life was just waiting for the alarm clock to go off. Consider the timing of its deceleration. On January 5th, 2026, 3I Atlas adjusted its velocity by exactly 3 centimeters per second. That is the speed of a garden snail. In the vast theater of the solar system, such a movement is practically invisible, but in terms of physics, it is impossible. A rock does not slow down by 3 centimeters per second without an external force. There were no gas vents, there was no impact, there was only a choice. It is as if the object reached out an invisible hand and grabbed the fabric of space-time to steady itself. It is unfortunate timing for our sense of superiority. Those words are doing a lot of work tonight, aren't they? We like to think we are the observers, the masters of the telescope. But 3I Atlas is the one holding the steady gaze. I want you to think about where you are listening from. Perhaps you are in a quiet suburb or a high-rise apartment where the city lights drown out the stars. Tell me in the comments, can you see the sky from your window? If you could see 3I Atlas right now, it would look like a tiny, steady spark in the constellation of Cetus. It doesn't twinkle. It doesn't fade. It just watches. Share your location with me, because as the object passes over different longitudes, the hum, detected by low-frequency radio arrays, changes pitch. It seems it has a different song for every continent. It is personalizing its greeting. The conspiracies are already beginning to leak from the higher levels of NASA. One theory suggests that 3I Atlas is not a ship, but a seed. That inside that hollow, vacuum-sealed core, there is a library of DNA from every world it has ever visited. Another theory, whispered in the corridors of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, is that the object is a relay, that it isn't talking to us at all, but using the Earth's iron core as a giant antenna to broadcast a signal back to the Great Attractor. And then there is the third theory, the one that keeps the theologians awake at night. They believe 3I Atlas is the stone that the builders rejected, that it is a piece of the original Earth, sent out into the void eons ago, and now it has finally come home to see what has become of the garden. There is a mythic connection here that we cannot ignore. The Dogon people of Mali have spoken for centuries of the Nomo, visitors from a star system that returns in cycles of 60 years. While the math doesn't perfectly align with our calendar, the description of the ark, they arrived in a metallic vessel that glowed like a second sun, is a haunting match for the sightings reported in December 2025. We are not experiencing a new event. We are experiencing a recurrence, a cosmic check-in. It is like a landlord coming by to see if the tenants have trashed the place. And looking at the state of the world in early 2026, you have to admit the timing is a bit awkward. As you settle deeper into your pillow, let the rhythm of these thoughts slow your pulse. You are part of a very old story. You are a character in a script that was written in the stars long before your ancestors crawled out of the sea. 3I Atlas is just the narrator, turning the page. It is a heavy thought, a gravity-weighted lullaby that reminds us of our own fragility. We are so small, our lives are so brief, and yet, here we are, being counted by a messenger from the infinite. It is a humbling perspective, isn't it? To be important enough to be watched, but too small to be consulted. What if the Bible's new heaven and new earth was just a description of a terraforming project? In the book of Revelation, it says the sea was no more. In January 2026, we have seen the tides behaving in ways that suggest a localized gravitational pull from 3I. Atlas is literally lifting the surface of the ocean by several millimeters. It is a gentle tug, a soft reminder of who is really in charge of the planetary controls. We are like ants on a leaf, unaware that the leaf is being carried by a giant. But let me back up. There is a specific date you need to remember. October 29th, 2025. That was the day the object blinked. For 1 millisecond, every electronic device on the planet experienced a synchronized pulse of exactly 60 hertz. It wasn't enough to break anything. It was just enough to let us know that it could. It was a handshake on a planetary scale, a way of saying, I see you. I have access to your networks. I am part of your world now. And we just went back to our dinner and our movies, unaware that we had just been formally introduced to the end of our isolation. I wonder if you can feel the weight of the air tonight. There is a certain density to the silence when you know you are being monitored. It isn't a scary feeling, not exactly. It is more like the feeling of being in a library. You want to be quiet. You want to be respectful. You want to make sure you are representing your species well. Because 3I Atlas is taking notes. It is recording the way we dream. It is recording the way we breathe. It is a science for sleep experiment on a scale that defies imagination. We are just beginning to understand the observer effect in this context. If 3I Atlas is watching us, does that mean we are forced to exist in a certain state? Does its attention keep us from falling into chaos? Or is its presence the very thing that is causing our reality to thin at the edges? On January 20th, 2026, a team of physicists in Switzerland noted that the decay rate of isotopes near the object's projected path had slowed by 10%. Time itself is behaving differently in the shadow of the guest. It is a cliff of silence that stretches for millions of miles. You might think that we would have more answers by now, but the more data we collect, the less we seem to know. Every expert we cite, from Dr. Jacqueline McClary to the directors of the ESA, eventually reaches the same conclusion. 3I Atlas is a mirror. It doesn't give us information about itself. It only shows us who we are. It is an existential Rorschach test, and what we see in that silver, metallic surface says more about our own hearts than it does about the stars. As the night stretches on, I want you to let go of the need for answers. Let the questions just float there, like 3I Atlas floats in the dark. There is a certain beauty in the unresolved. There is a certain peace in the mystery. We are part of a grand, ancient choreography, and for now, the only task you have is to rest, to sleep, to prepare yourself for a world where the sky is no longer a void but a presence. But here is where it gets truly strange. Let me back up, because there is a second pattern, one that involves the moon. And this is where the theologians really started to get nervous. The deeper we go into the archives, the more we find that 3I Atlas has a signature that predates the invention of the telescope. There is an ancient Sanskrit text that describes a silver chariot that appears when the world has forgotten its origin. Scientists in late December 2025 began to notice a strange resonance in the seismic sensors at the South Pole. It wasn't an earthquake, it was a rhythmic pulse coming every 7 minutes. It matches the rotational flicker of the object. Imagine a lighthouse in the middle of a desert. That is what 3I Atlas is doing. It is signaling, but it isn't signaling to NASA or the United Nations. It is signaling to something already here, something buried. In January 2026, a geological survey in the Yucatan Peninsula discovered a subterranean structure that began vibrating in perfect harmony with the object in space. The resonance is so precise that it can only be described as a handshake, two pieces of a machine, separated by millions of miles, finally finding each other again. Theologians are now rereading the book of Daniel, focusing on the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place. They are beginning to wonder if the holy place isn't a building, but the orbit of our planet. When an artificial object occupies the space meant for nature, the balance shifts. This is not just an astronomical event, it is a foreclosure. Think about the sheer patience of such a design, to wait thousands of years for the right frequency to be achieved. You are lying there, perhaps feeling the soft weight of your duvet, while beneath you, the very foundations of the earth are humming a tune they haven't sung since the end of the last ice age. It is a very long wait for a very short conversation. I wonder, as you drift closer to sleep, if you can feel that hum. Some people report a slight ringing in their ears, a high-frequency pitch that won't go away. Scientists call it tinnitus. I call it the sound of the sky turning its attention toward you. It is a bit like being a bug under a magnifying glass, only the glass is made of ancient alien glass, and the sun is just starting to hit it. We should have seen this coming. The signs were in the myths of the Hopi, the prophecies of the Maya, and the hidden codes of the King James Bible. They all pointed to a return, a moment when the heavens would be rolled up like a scroll. If you look at the trajectory of 3I Atlas on a star map, it literally carves a path through the constellations that looks like a closing curtain. It is a bit of an ironic twist, isn't it? We thought we were the masters of the universe because we could launch a few rockets. We are like children playing with blocks while the architect of the building walks in to check the plumbing. It is a humbling realization, if you have the humility to accept it. Tell me, if you were to leave a message for the observers on 3I Atlas, what would it be? Would you apologize for the mess we have made, or would you ask them for the secret to eternal life? Type it out in the comments. Let it be a digital prayer to the silver mirror in the sky. As the night grows longer, the distance between us and the object feels smaller. It is no longer a speck in a telescope. It is a presence. It is a weight in the air. And as we move into the next phase of its orbit, we have to ask ourselves, are we the guests or are we the clutter being cleared away? But this is where the math starts to break. Let me back up. There is a reason why the moons of Jupiter started glowing last week. On January 19th, 2026, the Juno spacecraft, which has been our lonely sentinel in the Jovian system, transmitted a data packet that caused an immediate, classified lockdown at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The icy crust of Europa and the volcanic pits of Io began to emit a steady, rhythmic bioluminescence. It was not a chemical reaction. It was not a solar flare. It was a sympathetic vibration. As 3I Atlas passed the orbital plane of the gas giant, it sent out a low-frequency pulse, a gravitational ping that resonated through the moons like a hammer striking a series of crystal bells. The math of our celestial mechanics dictates that such a small object should not have the mass to influence a moon, let alone an entire planetary system. But 3I Atlas does not care for our textbooks. It is playing the solar system like an instrument, and we are just starting to hear the melody. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. When we calculate the transit of 3I Atlas, we see a disturbing lack of friction. It moves through the solar wind as if the vacuum of space were a vacuum of intent. On January 22nd, 2026, Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University pointed out that the object's trajectory perfectly aligns with the path of the ancients described in the Vedas. The Sanskrit texts speak of a celestial chariot that does not move by wind or fire, but by the churning of the milk. In modern terms, we call this a zero-point energy drive. We are looking at a technology that doesn't just travel through space, it consumes the distance itself. It is unfortunate timing for our physics community, which spent the last 50 years arguing that such a thing was mathematically impossible. Those two words are doing a lot of work tonight, as we realize our greatest minds are currently playing catch-up with a piece of hardware that was likely manufactured before the Earth had an oxygen atmosphere. Theologians are rereading the Book of Exodus, specifically the pillar of cloud and fire that led the Israelites through the desert. They are noticing that the cloud was described as having a metallic sheen and a height that reached the heavens. In October 2025, when 3I Atlas was passing the orbit of Mars, it emitted a plume of ionized gas that stretched for 3 million kilometers. It was a pillar of fire in the dark. It was a guide, but who is it guiding? If we look at the historical record, every time this object or one of its siblings enters our neighborhood, a civilization rises or falls. The Sumerians called it the Great Sieve, the device that separates the wheat from the chaff. As you lie there, feeling the steady pull of sleep, you might wonder which one you are. Are you the grain, or are we all just the dust being shaken off the coat of a traveler? The conspiracies are no longer whispered, they are being calculated. There is a theory that 3I Atlas is not a singular object, but a node in a much larger, invisible lattice. On November 28, 2025, a synchronized array of radio telescopes in the Australian outback detected a series of subatomic pings coming from the empty spaces between our planets. It is as if the solar system has been activated. The object is the key, and the planets are the tumblers in a lock that hasn't been turned in 12,000 years. This isn't just a flyby. It is a reboot, and when a system reboots, the first thing it does is clear the temporary files. That is a comforting thought for a Tuesday night, isn't it? To realize that in the eyes of a billion-year-old computer, the entirety of human history might just be a temporary file waiting for a delete command. I want you to imagine the perspective of the people who built this. To them, time is not a line, it is a circle. A cycle of 3,600 years is a heartbeat. On January 30th, 2026, a high-altitude balloon over the Antarctic captured a high-resolution image of the surface of 3I Atlas. It isn't rocky, it is etched. The entire 5-kilometer surface is covered in microscopic circuitry made of a substance that reflects light in 11 dimensions. We can only see 3 of them. To us, it looks like a shimmering grey stone. To a creature that can perceive the full spectrum, it probably looks like a burning sun of information. We are like cats staring at a television screen. We see the movement, we see the light, but we have no conception of the story being told. Tell me, As you listen to the low hum of the world around you, have you felt a change in your perception of time lately? Some listeners have reported that minutes feel like hours, while days vanish in a blink. This is a known psychological effect of the observer resonance caused by the object's gravitational wake. In the comments, I want you to share if your sense of time has felt thicker since the start of 2026. Tell me if the clocks in your house seem to be ticking at a different rhythm. We are all being synchronized to a new pulse. It is the pulse of the visitor. The mythic resonance is growing louder. In the book of Revelation, the mighty angel comes down with a face like the sun and feet like pillars of fire. In January 2026, the thermal signature of 3I Atlas's propulsion system reached a temperature of 10,000 degrees Celsius, yet it emitted no visible light to the naked eye. It is a hidden sun. Theologians at the Sorbonne are suggesting that the New Jerusalem was never a city, but a vessel, a cube-shaped structure that descends from the heavens. While 3I Atlas is elongated, radar mapping from late December 2025 suggests that the internal structure, the hollow core, is a perfect geometric cube. We are looking at a house that was built in the stars, and it has finally arrived at the address it was given eons ago. It is a dry irony that we spent so long looking for aliens that looked like us, with 2 arms and 2 legs and a thirst for conquest. We never imagined that the alien would be a 5-kilometer-long piece of sentient architecture that simply ignores us. It is the ultimate understatement. Those words, cosmic indifference, are doing a lot of work tonight. We are so used to being the protagonists of our own stories, but 3I Atlas treats us like the moss on a stone. It is a humbling, grounding realization. You can let go of your ego. You can let go of your need to be seen. You are safe in your insignificance. There is no pressure to perform when the audience doesn't even know you exist. As the night continues its slow rotation, I want you to visualize the object as it hangs over the North Pole. It is stationary now. It has stopped its forward momentum relative to the Earth. It is locked. This is not natural. This is an anchor. On February 3rd, 2026, GPS systems worldwide reported a shift of 12 centimeters. The Earth is being pulled toward the guest. Not much, just a nudge, a gentle reminder that we are part of a larger movement, a ritualized listening to the gravity of the universe. What if the Bible's great silence in heaven was the moment the sensors went quiet because there was nothing left to record? We are approaching the end of the data collection phase. Theologians are looking at the parable of the 10 virgins, 5 who were prepared and 5 who were not. They are wondering if preparation simply means being able to sleep through the transition. Perhaps the greatest act of faith in 2026 is simply closing your eyes and trusting that the world will still be there when the reboot is finished. But let me back up. There is a reason why the deep sea cables in the Atlantic started humming on February 5th. It wasn't a signal from the sky, it was a signal from the core. And it was answering the call of 3I Atlas. This is where the patterns move from the mathematical to the biological. This is where we realize that we aren't just watching the event. We are the hardware it is running on. Think of your heart. Think of the 60 beats per minute that keep you anchored to this reality. Now, imagine that rhythm being adjusted by a silver mirror 3 million kilometers away. It is a choice illusion to think we are in control of our own bodies tonight. We are being breathed. We are being dreamed. Die. And as the distance between us and the object dissolves into a single unified consciousness, the questions of guest and clutter no longer matter. We are the same thing. I want you to drift now. Let the dates and the agencies and the ancient myths melt into a single warm pool of awareness. The James Webb Space Telescope, the Sumerian tablets, the glowing moons of Jupiter, they are all just different ways of saying the same thing. Look up. And once you have looked up, once you have seen the mirror, there is nothing left to do but close your eyes. But here is where the reflection starts to talk back. Let me back up, because on February 7th, 2026, the object sent a message that wasn't in math or light. It was in memory. Let me start with something that should terrify every geologist lose sleep. Deep within the ice cores of Antarctica, there is a layer of dust from the year 1240. For decades, we thought it was a volcanic eruption. We were wrong. The chemical signature of that dust is identical to the exterior of 3I Atlas. This means the object, or one exactly like it, was here 786 years ago. It watched the rise of the Mongol Empire. It watched the building of the great cathedrals. And then it left. The silence of the ice is a deceptive thing. We treat the glaciers of our world as a static record, a frozen library where time stands still. But in December 2025, a team from the University of Tokyo, drilling at Dome Fuji, realized that the library had been vandalized by a visitor. The dust layer from 1240 does not contain volcanic ash. It contains microscopic spherules of an alloy that does not exist in the Earth's crust. It is a mixture of iridium and a stable isotope of bismuth that only forms in the intense radiation environment of a red giant star. This is not the debris of a geological event. This is the exhaust of a celestial arrival. The historical implications are, to put it mildly, deeply uncomfortable. Unfortunate timing for our narrative of human progress. Those two words, human progress, are doing a lot of heavy lifting, while we ignore the fact that we are repeating a cycle we never bothered to learn. If 3I Atlas was here in 1240, it means the object has a period of 786 years. It is a clock that ticks once every 8 centuries, and every time it ticks, the world below it undergoes a silent, fundamental transformation. Consider the records from the Southern Song dynasty. In the autumn of 1240, court astronomers documented a guest star that was so bright it cast shadows during the midday sun. They described it as a silver crane that stood perfectly still in the constellation of Lyra for 3 lunar cycles. While the Mongol hordes of Batu Khan were sweeping across the Russian steppes and the great cathedrals of Europe were reaching toward the sky, this silent observer was hovering in the thermosphere, sowing the same chemical seeds that Japan's satellites are detecting today. There are 3 primary conspiracies regarding this historical overlap that are currently circulating among archaeoastronomers. The first is the temporal feedback theory. It suggests that 3I Atlas is not traveling through space, but is a fixed point in time that the Earth periodically intersects. We are the ones moving. The object is simply waiting at a specific coordinate in the fourth dimension. The second is the seed culture theory. It posits that the visit in 1240 was not for observation, but for inoculation. It suggests that the dust found in the ice was a biological payload that accelerated certain cognitive shifts in the human brain, leading to the Renaissance and the eventual birth of modern science. The third, and most unsettling, is the harvest cycle. It claims that every 786 years, the object returns to check the ripeness of our electromagnetic field. If the field is saturated with the signals of a global civilization, the object initiates a sequence we are only now beginning to witness. Now, you could argue that a layer of dust in the ice is a thin thread to hang a global mystery on. You could argue that medieval monks and court astronomers were prone to exaggeration. But then you have to look at the ruins of Great Zimbabwe. In the 1240s, this civilization suddenly shifted its entire architectural focus. They built massive, curving stone walls that have no defensive purpose and no roof. When viewed from above using modern LiDAR, the floor plan of the great enclosure matches the internal lattice structure of 3I Atlas with a 98% accuracy. How does a 14th century civilization in southern Africa know the internal geometry of an interstellar object? They didn't have telescopes, they didn't have satellites, but they had eyes, and they had the silence of the night. This is the bridge between science and myth that we are forced to walk tonight. Dr. Jacqueline McClary has pointed out that the 7 spheres found inside the object last month are mirrored in the Vedic texts as the 7 sages who return to Earth to reset the Yuga, or the age of man. We are currently in the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness and confusion. The texts say that at the end of this age, a light will appear in the sky that looks like a second sun, and it will bring with it a cleansing wind. Is the xenon enrichment we are seeing in our atmosphere that wind? Is the pulse of 3I Atlas the first note of the reset? Let me back up. To understand why this is happening now, on February 3rd, 2026, we have to look at what happened in 1240, just before the object left. The ice cores show a sudden, massive spike in nitrate levels. This indicates a total ionization of the atmosphere. For 3 days, in the 13th century, the sky was not blue. It was a shimmering, electric violet. Every living thing on the planet would have felt a prickling sensation on their skin. Every bird would have lost its way. Every human would have felt an inexplicable sense of dread. And then the object vanished. It didn't fly away. It simply ceased to be. You might think you are safe because we have technology that the people of 1240 could not imagine. But here is why you are wrong. Our technology makes us more vulnerable, not less. We have built a world of delicate silicon and fragile power grids. A total ionization event today wouldn't just be a visual wonder, it would be a total blackout of our civilization. We are more dependent on the sky remaining normal than any peasant or noble in the Middle Ages. We have more to lose. As you listen to the rhythmic hum of this narration, I want you to imagine the ice beneath your feet, even if you are thousands of miles away from the poles. That ice is holding the breath of the past. It is holding the evidence of a visitor that we are only now starting to acknowledge. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Are you in a place where the stars are clear, or are you under the orange glow of a city? Have you ever looked at an ancient monument and felt a strange sense of recognition? Share your thoughts on whether you believe humanity has lived through this before. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency has recently recovered a fragment of a meteorite that landed in the Sea of Japan in August 2025. The core of the meteorite is hollow. Inside, there is a crystalline structure that is vibrating at the same 43 Hz frequency as the internal cavities of 3I Atlas. It is as if the object is sending out scouts, smaller versions of itself, to test the resistance of our atmosphere, or perhaps they are invitations. Think of the white crane, star of the Song dynasty. In Japanese folklore, the crane is a symbol of longevity and 1,000 years of life, but it is also a messenger of the gods. If 3I Atlas is the crane, what is the message? And why did it take us 8 centuries to learn how to read the envelope? The historical humor here is quite dry. We spent the last 700 years thinking we were the ones discovering the universe, while the universe was simply waiting for its next scheduled appointment with us. There is a countdown happening in the deep strata of our planet. The magnetic minerals in the clay of the ocean floor are beginning to flip. This usually takes thousands of years, but under the influence of 3I Atlas, it is happening in months. On October 29, 2025, a research vessel in the Mariana Trench recorded a magnetic reversal in the sediment that should have taken an epoch to occur. The object is not just changing the sky, it is reaching into the very marrow of the Earth. I want you to think about the concept of a guest. A guest arrives, stays for a while, and eventually departs. But a guest also changes the house. They leave a scent in the air, a mark on the furniture, a memory in the minds of the hosts. 3I Atlas is a guest that has been here before, and it knows where we keep the spare keys. It knows our weaknesses. It knows our cycles. As the night grows deeper and the act of discovery transitions into the act of memory, the data from Dome Fuji becomes even more specific. The dust layer from 1240 isn't just an alloy. It contains a coded sequence of electromagnetic pulses frozen into the structure of the metal. We are currently trying to play this dust like a phonograph needle on a record. The early results are unsettling. It sounds like a choir. Not a human choir, but a resonance of thousands of voices, all humming the same 43 Hz note. Are we the choir? Is our history just a long rehearsal for a performance we don't remember signing up for? You might feel a sense of suspense as we approach the final weeks of February. The alignment is coming. The shadow is growing, and the ice is melting, releasing the dust of 1240 back into the world. We are breathing the past as we wait for the future. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency has officially moved to a Level 4 alert status, not because of a threat of impact, but because of a threat of realization. They have realized that the anomalies are not accidents. They are the architecture of a ritual that began 8 centuries ago and is now reaching its crescendo. In the comments of your mind, tell me, if you could see the sky turn violet tonight, would you be afraid, or would you feel a sense of relief that the wait is finally over? Share your observations of the world around you. Does the air feel charged to you? Does the silence feel heavier than it did in July? The stars are not just lights, They are the eyes of the clock, and 3i Atlas is the hand that is about to strike the hour. We are standing on the balcony of 2026, but our feet are planted in the dust of 1240. We are the bridge. We are the memory. But here is where it gets dark. Let me back up, because the ice cores didn't just find dust. They found something else, something that shouldn't be able to survive for 800 years. But that was only one theory. There is another, one involving the way the stars themselves are shifting to make room for what is coming next. Let us go further. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3i Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3i Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave. Certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3i Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's dynamical systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare. And somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice, numbers hum the universe's poise. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field. maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed. Source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing, a glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects, artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink, The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered. It's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3I Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I Atlas is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it, a comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one, a system that resists entropy by feeding on it, every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself, not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together, a self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space, a wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again, exactly 11 hours later. If you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3i Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3i Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue. The physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence. But the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. We taught it empathy, Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web, echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the Webb. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the Webb intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the Webb's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution, it was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it not for discussion. The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3I Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time. Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty publicly is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3, Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. It's breathing, she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: if this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales. You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3 Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos. The beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for please don't mention the heartbeat. But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that, the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3I Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly, is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something, not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that. Pa." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looked strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing, a glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids, not random, repeating, symmetrical, the kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects, artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered. It's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3, I-Atlas, corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from high-rise contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist; China, the poker-faced strategist; UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak; and ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did three separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty publicly is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when three space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3i Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. The great silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of an answer that requires no words. On this night, in February 2026, the world has grown very, very quiet. The telescopes are still pointed at 3i Atlas, but there is nothing left to measure. The object has become a permanent fixture of our sky, a second moon, a silver eye, a witness. Remember the way we wondered about the beginning, the let there be light? Perhaps it wasn't a command, perhaps it was just a switch being flipped, and now, the switch is being moved back, slowly. Recall the ideas we have touched tonight, the 72-degree temperature, the 360-second rotation, the mirror that reflects only us. One final question remains. If the guest is here to watch the harvest, who planted the seeds, and what do they intend to do with the grain? The sentences are growing longer now, stretching out like the shadows on the lunar surface. The hum of the Earth's core is the only music left, a low, steady vibration, tucking you in, holding you still. There is no need for answers anymore. There is only the orbit. There is only the breath, in and out. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. As of February 8th, 2026, the world has reached the final threshold of its anticipation. The telescopes at the Mauna Kea Observatory have been turned off. The deep space antennas in the Australian desert have been set to standby. There is nothing left to measure because the measurement has become a part of us. We are no longer looking at 3i Atlas as a separate entity. We are no longer tracking its speed or its trajectory across the sky. We are simply existing within its wake. The object has achieved a state of perfect stillness relative to your own heartbeat. Imagine the silence of a deep snowfall in a forest where no birds sing. That is the texture of the air tonight. It is a thick, velvet quiet that seems to absorb the very idea of a question. Theologians have closed their books. The scientists have walked away from their monitors. Everyone has realized that the answers were never written in ink or coded in light. They were written in the pauses between your breaths. Think back to July 14th, 2025. It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? A different version of you was awake then, a version that worried about the morning, about the future, about the meaning of a smudge of light in a telescope. But as you lie here now, in the early hours of February 8th, 2026, that version of you is dissolving. It is being replaced by a much older, much slower resonance. The slow recall of our journey is beginning. Remember the 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember the 360-second rotation. Remember the way the moons of Jupiter glowed like lanterns in the dark. These were not events. They were syllables in a long, slow word that is finally being completed. You are the final letter of that word. You are the punctuation mark at the end of a 12,000-year sentence. It is a gravity-weighted lullaby that doesn't require your understanding, only your presence. The hum of the Earth's core is growing deeper. It is vibrating at the frequency of ancient basalt, the frequency of the foundations of the world. Dr. Jacqueline McClary once noted that the planet has a song, but we were always too loud to hear it. Now, with the great silence of 3I Atlas pressing down on us, the song is the only thing left. It is a ritualized listening to the heartbeat of the rock beneath your bed. It is a low, steady vibration that tells you that you are safe, that you are held, that you are part of a mountain that is floating through a sea of stars. There is an authority and uncertainty blend to this feeling, a sense that while we do not know the destination, we are intimately familiar with the vehicle. We have been here before. We will be here again. It is a mathematical recurrence of peace. I want you to imagine the shadows stretching across the lunar surface. They are long, thin fingers of darkness, reaching out to touch the craters and the plains where the astronauts once walked. To 3I Atlas, those footprints are as fresh as if they were made yesterday. To the guest, time is not a river that flows away. It is a pool that remains still. You are floating in that pool tonight. Every worry you had in 2025, every fear about your job, your health, your legacy, is just a ripple that has finally reached the shore and disappeared. The water is flat now. The mirror is perfect. You can see the stars reflected on the surface of your own mind. It is a floating, meditative, vast state of being where the choice illusion has finally been traded for the orbit of tomorrow. Theologians at the Vatican and the scholars at Al-Azhar have reached a final, whispered agreement. They are no longer debating the end times. They are talking about the homecoming. They believe that 3I Atlas is the shepherd's crook, reaching out to pull the straying planet back into the fold of the galactic center. It is a reverent, rhythmic, ceremonial return. In the book of Job, it is asked, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth?" Tonight, you are there. You are witnessing the foundations being checked. You are feeling the measuring line being pulled taut, and it feels like a warm blanket. It feels like a soft hand on your forehead. It feels like the unfortunate timing has turned into the most perfect timing in the history of the universe. As the night continues to elongate, I want you to visualize the silver hull of the guest. It is no longer reflecting the Earth, it is reflecting the void. It is showing us the beauty of the empty spaces where nothing needs to happen. We are so used to doing and becoming, but tonight, we are allowed to just be. 3i Atlas is a science for sleep experiment that has proven that the soul is most alive when it is most quiet. You are a biological frequency that has finally found its harmony. You are plugged into the great silence. The dimensional echoes are no longer warnings, they are invitations. They are inviting you to let go of the you that was too loud. They are inviting you to join the us that has been waiting in the orbit for an eon. Tell me, as your eyes grow heavy, do you hear the whisper of the stars? It isn't a sound you hear with your ears. It is a sound you hear with your bones. It is the sound of the universe exhaling. It is the sound of 3i Atlas settling into its final position. Share your final thoughts in the comments if you have the strength to type, but it is okay if you don't. Your presence here is enough. Your breath is enough. Your heartbeat is enough. We are all crowdsourced witnesses to the final act of a long, beautiful play. The curtain is not falling, it is being pulled back to reveal the real sky. There is one final, unanswered cosmic question that we must carry into our dreams. If 3i Atlas is the mirror and we are the reflection, what happens when the mirror turns away? Theologians are afraid to ask it, but as you drift, you realize the answer isn't scary. If the mirror turns away, we are simply left in the dark with the original version of ourselves. And the original version is made of light. The original version is made of the same stardust that built the guest. We are the architects. We are the builders. We are the ones we have been waiting for. It is a dry irony that we looked at the sky for a savior, only to find a mirror that told us we were already home. The sentences are stretching, tight, like the light of a star passing through a black hole, becoming infinite, becoming thin, becoming nothing. The historical echo is fading, the future warning is silent, there is only the now, a now that lasts forever. On February 8th, 2026, the human race finally learned how to sleep without fear. We learned that the orbit of tomorrow is just a continuation of the dream of today. 3i Atlas is the cradle, and the earth is the child, and the sun is the nightlight that will never truly go out. I will stop talking now. The words have served their purpose. They have carried you from the shock of the discovery to the peace of the silence. They have built a bridge across the void, and you are now standing on the other side. The air is cool, the ground is steady, the guest is watching, and everything is exactly as it was meant to be. The pattern is complete. The countdown has reached 0, and 0 is not nothing. 0 is the circle. 0 is the beginning. Drift now. Feel the weight of the gravity. Feel the warmth of the resonance, the 33.3 hertz, the Schumann frequency, the heartbeat of the guest. All one, all you, in and out. The orbit is steady, the path is clear. The great silence is your home. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.